So problem 8, we have 6x squared minus 5x minus 4, and we're supposed to solve this using the quadratic formula. So if I'm solving this using the quadratic formula, which we have written over here to the left, we need to identify A, B, and C so that we can figure out what's going to go in here. So A in this problem is what number? And how do you know where A is? It's always attached to x squared. Okay, and then B in this problem would be... And that is always attached to just the x. And then the c is negative 4. And it's always the part that's by itself. So when I go to plug this in, when I have this negative b, that really means the opposite of b. So if b is already negative 5, then what is negative 5 going to be? Positive 5. So I get 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So that would be what? Negative 5 squared minus 4 times A. A in this problem is, yes, sorry, I got confused. So A is 6 times C, and C is negative 4. Okay. All over 2 times 6. So now that I have everything in the right place, I need to take care of, first of all, what's underneath the radical. What's underneath the radical is called what? The discriminant. So I need to figure out what that is. So what is negative 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 4? Is 121. So I now have 5 plus or minus the square root of 121 over 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, what else can I do to this? And what is the square root of 121? 11. So really I have 5 plus or minus 11 divided by 12. And this problem will actually go further because now I have no square roots left. All I have is numbers. So I can write this as two things. I can write this as 5 plus 11 over 12. And I can write this as 5 minus 11 over 12. No, we want to keep it separate. The question was, I don't know if y'all heard, the question was, can we just write it plus or minus? Because these are all numbers, I need to go ahead and simplify this down and actually figure out what it is. I want to give it a specific value. So I want to go ahead and separate it out so that I can do that. So what is 5 plus 11 going to give me on the left side? 16. Then if I do 16 divided by 2, or 12, I get what? Yeah, 4 over 3. So 4 over 3 is one of my answers. And then on the right side, what is 5 minus 11? Negative 6. And negative 6 over 12 is going to give me negative 1/2. So that would be my other answer. So first of all, what's wrong with this problem? It equals 2x, and it cannot equal 2x. It needs to equal 0. So I'm going to minus 2x from the right side. And when I minus 2x from the left side, which of those terms do I subtract it from? Yes. So then I end up with x squared. What is 8x minus 2x? So plus 6x plus 12 equals 0. And that's what I need. I need it to be in this form. So again, just so we can have the quadratic formula visible on the screen, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What in this problem, what is a? 1, because a is always the number in front of x squared. What is b? Okay. And then c is 12. So when I go to plug that in, I have negative b, which means the opposite of b, so what's going to go there? Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 12 all over 2 times 1. The biggest thing that I'm seeing just kind of helping kids throughout the day and answering questions is there is a tendency to just put this part, the 6 squared, in the calculator. That's not a big deal on this problem, but if you look back at this one, if you don't put that -5 in parentheses, you are going to get the problem wrong. And that's incredibly important. So it's one of those things, it's easier to always use parentheses because then you don't have to wonder when you have to use parentheses. So remember, when we type this in, the only thing we want to type in is the numbers that are under the square root. We don't actually want to type in the square root symbol itself. So we just want to type in the 6x squared minus 4 times 1 times 12. That part, not the square root symbol, literally just those numbers is what we want to type in so that we can get a value for our discriminant. So what value do you get for your discriminant for this problem? So -6 plus or minus the square root of -12 divided by 2. So if my discriminant was -12, or I have a -12 underneath my square root, what does that tell me about my number of solutions? They're imaginary. They're going to end up being imaginary solutions. Graphically, think about what does that translate to in a graph? What does that mean about your graph? No x-intercepts. It's never going to touch the x-axis. Okay, so now I can manipulate this a little bit because I can take care of that -12. So what happens when I have that -12? It becomes 2i square root 3. So here's why. If I have 12 and I prime factor it, 12 is 2 times 6 and 6 is 2 times 3. So I have a pair of 2's. So that means I'm going to have a 2 on the outside. And then I have a 3 left over, so there's going to be a 3 on the inside because it didn't pair up with anything. And then because it was a negative underneath the square root symbol, that means that I'm going to have an I as well. All over 2. Okay, so the last thing I can do is I can simplify this problem. And the reason I know I can simplify it is because I have this -6, this 2 on top, and the 2 that's on bottom. All of those can be divisible by something. So the only way you can simplify is if all 3 of those pieces are divisible by something. If only 2 of them can be reduced, then you can't do it. Okay? And you never worry about reducing what's inside the square root symbol. So -6, 2, and 2 are all divisible by what number? 2. So if I divide them all by 2, -6 divided by 2 is -3. So I have -3 plus or minus. What is 2 divided by 2? 1. Do I have to write that 1? Okay. I could if I wanted to. I'm going to write it just so you can see that it's there, and it's fine if you write it. And then I still have square root 3. Divided by, what is 2 divided by 2 on the bottom? A 1. Again, do I have to write that 1 in the denominator? No. So you could also write it as -3 plus or minus 1i square root 3, or you could just write I square root 3. Again, you don't have to have that 1 there. So either of these answers is acceptable.